Hello, hello, hello.
Hola, hola, hola. Hi, KEISEAN.
Hello, Kenya. We are back here again. It's a pleasure to be back here on this Thursday evening,
Yes.
and I am really, really grateful that the sun came out and stayed out for the last couple of days here in Long
Oh,
Beach.
you haven't had sun.
We have, it's been raining off and on since January, so it was just misting like over the weekend, and so it's nice when I can look at the thermostat or the weather for the week and see that there's nothing below 70. It's like,
Oh my
yes,
God,
this
whatever.
is California.
As I'm in Chicago. Although it's been warm. Although whenever it's warm for us, we have like tornadoes and thunder and it's been storming. It finally hits over 70, but it's been storming all afternoon. So you can't go outside and enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. So no, it's been a good week so far this week. I know that we typically start our conversation off with a little bit of a check-in with each other, but I guess I'll start with introducing myself. I feel like we know each other, but I forget that there's people who might be watching this.
It's an audience
no idea
that
who we
we're
are.
exactly trying to.
So yeah, my name is KEISEAN Rains, and I am the Calm Coach, and I'm live streaming from Long Beach, California. I am a wellness advocate. I am also a parent, a business owner, a consultant. I wear a lot of hats and I do a lot of things, but ultimately I work to be in service to others. That's what I've started to recognize, that the things that I do, no matter what hat I'm wearing, is always about being in service to others. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
You do it well. You do it really well, really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome everyone. If you're watching live, throw a comment. We always love to say hello to you. If you're watching post live, still you can comment and obviously subscribe and push the notifications, because we're usually here weekly, but next week we're going to be off next week, but we'll talk more about that later. But my name is Kenya. Similar to KEISEAN, I've got a lot of hats, but the title, I guess, that I wear mostly is just being a healer, being an artist. I'm a certified health and wellness coach. I also do astrology, self-care coaching. I'm also an artist, a singer, a musician. It's so funny. I made a post today, and
I saw your post. I was like, okay, Malik Yoba. And I was like, bro, I had the biggest crush on him back in the day.
It is so funny because that's a throwback, right? So, we recorded that in 2013, 10 years ago. But a lot of people didn't know Kenya then, right? So now it's like, oh my God, I told y'all I was in it, but I
told y'all I was a whole singer.
I told y'all I was. So anyway, so that's fun. Hi, Daria. Hi, Stephanie. We have some hellos from some ladies. So yeah, I do healing work. I do transformative work. And, at the end, I'll share more because I've got some fun things coming up that I want to feature when we get to that point. But I'm going to pass the mic. Well, we got to do our special topic. We have a deep topic today. And
it's
a deep topic today.
Yeah, we have a deep topic today. And I want to leave room and also just let folks know who are watching this live that you're welcome to engage in the comments. If you have questions, throw it out there. The topic today, I think, can be somewhat of a sensitive topic. It might be triggering for some. So I just want to let you know that if at any point in this conversation, it's getting to be a little too much or it's bringing up something that maybe is bothersome for you, I invite you first to sit in it. But then if it's just too uncomfortable, it's okay. You can turn us off. Our feelings will not be hurt.
We won't be hurt. We won't be hurt.
Yeah. But before we dive into the topic, do you have a hot topic? Is something cool in the news that I missed this week other than you and Malik Yoba, which was a throwback?
Me and Malik Yoba.
It was a hot moment on Instagram.
It was a hot moment on Instagram and Facebook. So go to my Instagram at Kenya MJ Music. You'll see. And let me tell you this about Malik, just real quick. I know Malik's very attractive on screen, but he's way more attractive in person.
I'm sure.
And he's very tall. And I did not anticipate that because I am tall. And when you are filming, that's one of the big things that you have to think about is height differential and so forth. And he came in and I was just like, whoa. So I was very, very, very nervous that day, but
Okay.
he was wonderful. And he really helped me just calm down. And we spent time just one-on-one to get to know each other before we had to be romantic interest in this video shoot. So
That's cool.
it was yummy. It was
That's
yummy.
cool.
So go to the Instagram, go to my Instagram. You'll see a clip on my Facebook.
That's cool. Yeah, the only other thing that I thought about this week, that was a hot topic about another tall, dark, and handsome chocolate actor man, Jonathan Majors. It's not looking good for him right now, career-wise. For those who don't know, hadn't followed the story, he was arrested for a domestic dispute a couple of weeks ago, and then subsequently has been going through somewhat of like a domino effect of, you know, being detached from the agency that he was affiliated with and being detached from projects that he was supposed to be a part of. So now they're saying there's other people who are coming forward. So Jonathan Majors, you know, sending you some love, my brother. He was on the rise in a really big way. And so, you know, Jonathan.
This happens a lot to Black male actors. I think we have to put our hat on just for a minute, because there's a lot of Black male actors who have done some really powerful things in their craft. And right at the moment of their thing, something happens. And it's happened to some pretty prominent, some really and it's very similar to Jonathan Majors, right at their cusp. Like they're just about to, I can think of 4 offhand. But anyway, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. So that was on my mind this week, just thinking about that. And you know, just it brought me kind of to a little bit to the subject that we're going to talk about today. You know, when I picked the topic from the list that Kenya has put together for today's conversation, I was dancing around this particular topic. There's like 50 something topics on this list. And every time I looked at the list, this one would catch my eye and I would say, no, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later. And I think that's the reason why I said, you know, maybe we'll go ahead and start the conversation now. And before we came on the broadcast, we talked about this might be the kind of conversation that extends into another show, just so that we can give space for it. And there was also a guest that I wanted to have come on and contribute to the conversation, but she is very busy and wasn't available to join us today. So maybe she'll come back and join us in a couple of weeks.
We gotta have her, because she's really I think she's going to be able to bring a really interesting perspective to it. So, and it's a secret, it's a surprise. You guys
exactly. But yeah, so today's topic is thick, overweight, fat. Is it okay, or what's okay for Black women? And when I first looked at this topic, the first thing that came up was, you know, one, I don't know at what time in my life I was ever referred to as thick. I remember being in high school, being somewhat petite. I'm only 5'2". I just met some people in person that I've been working with for the last 6 months on Tuesday, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't know you were so little." And I'm like, "Yep, 5'2", right here. I look big on Zoom, but I'm little." But when I was younger, I would say all through high school into my early 20s, I was very petite. You know, I could still wear like kid size clothes and didn't really fill out a bra until I was well into college. And so I never really had like an issue with my weight when I was growing up. Whereas in contrast to some of my siblings, one of my siblings in particular, I remember often being compared to her. Our bodies were different. And that was when I first started becoming aware of this idea of there was a preference almost to people who had a smaller, more petite or thinner body type, in contrast to those who had a bigger, thicker, or fatter body type. And so my first introduction to this idea of what's okay for a Black woman when we think about the size or the shape of her body started when I was a child. And so when I looked at this topic, I immediately thought of the women in my family. You know, for those who don't know, I have 3 sisters and a mom. So there's mostly women in my family. And of all of the women in my family, we all have different body types from like the anthropomorphic to ectomorphic body types. We have curves, we have different lines, we have different skin colors, tones, textures, everything. None of us look exactly the same. And I remember a couple of years ago, we took my mom to a Korean day spa for Mother's Day. And if you've never been to a
Oh,
K spa,
yeah.
you're going to get to know each other
You gonna
at a
get to
K
know each
spa.
other.
You're going to get to know each other.
Be a little
Because
naked, just a little naked.
yeah, at a K spa, it's traditional to be nude in parts of the spa. And I remember very vividly a memory where we were getting ready to go into the saunas and the baths and noticing I've never seen all of the women's bodies in my family, like just in
Wow.
their true form. And just kind of taking a a note of like, wow, we really are different. So I want to ask you, Kenya, when is the first time that you thought about your body and how it looked in comparison to others and what was okay or not okay about it?
Yeah. So the reason why this is on here. So I was an obese child. So I started putting on weight. I started noticing I was putting on weight around fourth, fifth grade. It was really probably around fourth grade. And I remember feeling like I'm bigger, but not really knowing why this was really happening and
Mhm.
just trying to kind of ignore it and just hope maybe nobody else is really noticing it. So unfortunately, body image for me started probably around age 9, really, really young. And I put on a ton of weight between, I would say, 5th and 7th grade.
Mhm.
And I've always been the taller girl. So I could play it off a little bit. And just so that you guys know, I'm 5'8", 5'9". I don't know, somewhere between 5'8", 5'9". Um, and so, yeah, I noticed I've had to deal with my weight and my size since childhood. And what ended up happening, by the time I was 13, and I remember getting all the way up to a size 20,
Mhm.
being in 8th grade, 9th grade, 8th grade. And when I got it to a size 18, I was just like, okay, what is happening? And again,
Mhm.
maybe if I just wear this or this or this outfit, nobody will really notice this. But I started hearing some comments here or there. But it wasn't loud comments. It wasn't like heavy bullying, but it was
Mhm.
obvious that I was the bigger girl. Um, and really what happened, what really kind of shook me is when I was in 9th grade, starting high school, I had a pediatrician appointment. And
Mhm.
my pediatrician told my mom that I weighed 202 pounds, and this is 9th grade. And I just broke. It all finally, I hadn't broke. Like I would always, when I would hear the weight, it would be like, like wait. And my mom would try, my mom was disciplined, and you talked about families. So I have one sister and then my mom. And my sister, growing up, she's taller than me, 5'10", and she was a track athlete. And so growing up, she was very long and thin and, nice chest and curves and, just really. And my mom is a very petite woman. She's not real short, but her too, size 6. And so here Kenya was, right?
Mhm.
Mom was trying not to say things. I could tell she would try to say, well, let's try it. Let's together eat just cabbage soup for the week, or let's together just have bananas, like and I could tell, and it was like, okay, why are we just eating cabbage soup? Like, okay, but I knew what that meant. But when the pediatrician said that, I broke. And the pediatrician said, I really think you need to consider Weight Watchers. And I think a lot of people have downplayed Weight Watchers and have said it was not a good thing for youth. But for me, I think it was probably the best thing I could have done, because it made me. Weight Watchers has always it's more trendy now. When it was back in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
it really was.
So,
You got to eat some good quality food. It wasn't
yeah.
about starving or any of those things. And it taught me how to look at food differently. And it
Mm.
taught me how to, because I was with all these, I mean, I was 13 and all the
I was
women were
gonna
like
say
60.
I was gonna say if you were in ninth grade, that's 13, 14 years old. I mean, I remember seeing ads for Weight Watchers, and my grandmother, both of my grandmothers actually at one time were doing Weight Watchers, and they had the lean cuisine meals and they had the slim fast shake. So I remember around, eighth grade going into high school, seeing just like ads and commercials, but then also seeing the women in my family who at the time, you know, when I think of like my grandma Mildred at the time or my grandma Lavelle at the time, they're, you know, just grandma bodies, you know, I didn't think
Yeah.
they were big
Yeah.
or fat or
Yeah.
anything. They were just like cozy grandma bodies, and they were
Yeah.
soft and squishy, and who doesn't love a
Right.
hug from those, you know what I
Well,
mean? But I
that's
remember them, especially one of my grandmothers, really like obsessing about her weight and always talking about
mm,
her own body really negatively, and talking about
mm,
my sister's bodies and my cousin's bodies really negatively, and starting to think, oh man, okay, so is it not okay for
mhm,
someone's body to look bigger or be bigger? And I
mhm.
remember getting a lot of praise for being so petite.
Oh,
Oh, you're so
wow.
skinny. Oh, look at you. Oh my God, look at you. Just such
Well,
a cute little shape, you know? But
girl, family was the worst. And not my immediate
yeah,
family.
like the extended family.
Oh my God. That's when I felt my pain.
Mm,
It, particularly when I would go to see family that, you know, didn't live in the area, but like the family that lived on the East Coast or what I grew up in Denver. And so they would only see me once every 2 years or 3 years. So yes, in this time frame, I came back a lot heavier. And I all the time, you know, how much bigger are you trying to get? You know, how much more food you gonna keep eating? Ooh, can you? Ooh, can you? And it was, so this is very triggering for me because I mean that, and I don't know how much my family, because then what happened when the pediatrician, I did join Weight Watchers, I lost a lot of weight fast because I was only 14. It don't take much. If you start trying when you're that age, you're going to lose weight pretty fast. And for me, losing that weight like that, it finally, I mean, I was always Kenya, but now it felt like people finally were like, oh, so now what does Kenya like? So and I've always been a creative. I've always,
mhm.
music has, you know, I was in music since I had my first solo in 3rd grade. But it really wasn't until I lost the weight and I got into a musical at my high school. I actually was Dorothy in The Wiz. It was the first
I
time.
was Dorothy
That's
in the third grade. That's so cool.
so fun. The Dorothy's.
So cool.
So I was Dorothy in 10th grade. And for my high school, it was a pretty big deal because this particular high school had never done a Black production. So to have a Black lead, I was the first person to kind of have a Black lead in this. And I literally, because 9th grade, I was still kind of heavy set. I was losing the weight. And literally, it wasn't until I was Dorothy and people are like, did you just start at this school? And I'm like, nah,
Wow.
I've been here the whole time.
It's like they didn't even see
You didn't even
you.
see
They didn't even
me.
see you, which that brings me to something. It brings up something for me as well, which is when we think about thick or overweight or fat or bigger bodied women, particularly bigger bodied Black women, somehow, and this is going to sound a little bizarre, but the irony for me is somehow the bigger the body, the less visible she
Yes,
becomes, the less we
yes,
see her.
yes,
And when we think
yes.
about it in the context of how, you know, this is the part of the conversation where I think sometimes we, you know, we have to peel back layers and think about like where this shit actually comes from. And I was doing a little bit of research and kind of pulling some notes together, and also asking my sister 1,000 questions. But because she has a really great thing to say about this. But we're talking about this idea of how systemic racism and
Mhm.
discrimination of the body image of Black women is really just part of our culture, unfortunately. And I think
Mm,
because of that, it's Black women have been subjected to these unrealistic beauty standards or unrealistic expectations of what our bodies are supposed to look like, that even with surgical intervention are really impossible to achieve, because that's just not our design. And
exactly.
so when we think about how it shows up now with social media, just media in general, when we think about the little Black girls that are 9 through 14 years old now, who look at social media or they look at television, and now they do see women like Lizzo. They do
Mhm.
see women like, you know, Shirley Shepherd. They do see other, maybe not as many young girls as I would like to see, but they do see some women who their body isn't necessarily part of the conversation. Like, you'll remember this because you're around my age. Remember when Oprah pulled out that wagon of all the ways that she
yes.
lost? And it was, and I don't even know what the topic of the show, and probably shouldn't have been watching Oprah Winfrey anyway. But I remember that show. I remember that episode because she had on like a bigger piece of clothing, and she did this big reveal, and she had this teeny tiny waist, and she pulled out this wagon of all this fat that she had lost, and there was all this celebration and jubilation for what she had accomplished. But then what did we see a couple seasons later?
I know.
She gained the weight all back.
I know.
And so much of Oprah's image was connected to her weight.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I mean, Oprah has been so pivotal on so many levels. And, you know, I used to watch Oprah every single day after school. So I too was, but I loved it. And so I don't remember where I was at in my journey with weight, but I remember watching that and thinking like that was such a light. But at the same time, I did think like, her face looks so off. Like, and I remember like something is off. Something is off. And I was, even for me, I was like, I don't want to, like, I had a teacher actually pull me out because when I was losing the weight, I was losing it pretty fast. And she pulled me out and she's like, are you okay? Are you doing, because of course now she's a teacher.
Like, are you eating?
Right. Are we doing exactly?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. I'm on a special program. This is intentional.
Right.
But this is so multi-layered. When you were talking about the bigger we are, the more invisible. And this is so deep because when we put the mental health layer on this, there are some women who want to be invisible, therefore will allow the weight to keep coming on because of a myriad of things.
Yeah, and I am one of those women. Like I said, when I was a child and a teenager, I was never fat. I was never overweight. And it wasn't until later on in life where, after having a child and experiencing what I now understand to be severe postpartum depression, I started putting on weight and put on a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. I was under 130 pounds for most of my adult life. And so it wasn't until after I had my son and initially lost the baby weight and got back to my little snatched, size 8 jeans and felt all good. But then over time, years later, and still present day, am carrying weight that I know started with feelings of depression, that I know started with feelings of wanting to be invisible, wanting to disappear, wanting to kind of sink into the background, and had nothing to do with a knowledge of what to eat and what not to eat, nothing to do with whether or not I knew when, where, how to work out. I mean, look at my family. Like, my dad works out every day. One of my sisters is a certified nutritionist and exercise psychologist. One of my other sisters is a, body movement advocate, supreme. Like, I know how to get smaller, but there's something in me. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and we had, we talk very vulnerably, and we get together once a week typically, and we go for these walks, and we talk about, girl, I know what I need to do, but it's just not happening. And I think that's where this question comes in. Like, what's okay for Black women? Is it okay at a certain age to be bigger? Is it more acceptable once you've had children to be bigger? Is that just our natural way? Or are we still trying to shrink ourselves into these body images that were never designed for us in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all of that.
It's all of the above.
It's all of the above. I mean, I'm going to just speak from myself.
Okay.
I mean, weight for me, once I had lost all of that weight, then the pressure becomes, because now when you are really heavy set like that and you lose 50, 60 pounds or whatever, obviously it is very noticeable. And so now, even if others are not watching your weight, you think they are, especially when you were bigger. Everyone made so many comments about your weight. I'm talking about family. So now it's like, well, if I put on 2 pounds, I know they're looking and wait. And that has happened, when as I got older And yeah, I might have put on a little weight here or there. Family, oh, you trying to put some of that weight back?
Like they're
And
measuring for you, like they're keeping track.
so this weight thing was just very intense for me. And I mean, I had a lot of obesity on my father's side, relatives who, you know, the diabetes and, you know, amputation, so many things as a result of obesity and disease. And this is why for me, this becomes, we can't ignore, we can't just be thick. We got to really unpack this, because what is that? What does that mean inside of you, though? For me, because I had so much to think about,
Right.
what was going on inside my head, so that I could, you know. And it finally, honestly, I did a dance with weight. You know, I always kept my weight pretty manageable. When I had my first baby, obviously that was the biggest I had ever gotten. After
Yeah,
having,
that was it. Yeah, yeah.
That was,
it was
and,
like,
and when
whose body is this? Yeah, right.
you get
yeah.
pregnant, it's like, okay, I don't need to get on scale this week, y'all. Like,
Right.
this is like, because
probably not a good idea.
this right. And so I had a little, I did get some fear inside, because now I'm also, I don't think I ever had real disorder necessarily eating, trying to keep the food, but I absolutely had dysmorphia. What I saw, and I still deal with this a lot. I don't know really my size, like you know, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Especially when I saw, I think it was a TikTok video, and I want to get to some of these comments too.
Yeah,
I saw
we've
a
got some
TikTok
good
video
ones. Yeah.
that was a Black woman who was just talking about, you know, one of those, like, if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self something, like, what would I say? And she said one of the first things I would tell her is like, girl, you're not fat, you know. And then especially because I remember looking at images of myself in my early 20s, even in my early 30s, and looking back at that time and being like, dang, I was starving myself back then. I was trying to just get by on, you know, Mountain Dew and crackers because I thought I was so big.
You
So
thought you were so big.
the dysmorphic component definitely was there. And I think also for me, I did go through intense outpatient therapy for disordered eating, which was bizarre because externally I didn't look unhealthy necessarily. I didn't look quote unquote fat necessarily, but I had a great therapist, and that therapist was just paying attention. And I was talking to him actually, about how every time I would eat, it was tasting like metal in my mouth. And he was like, okay, so we went through all these like physical tests to make sure there wasn't anything going on strange in my body. And he was like, would you be interested in talking to one of our our eating disorder counselors, our nutritionist, our dietitian? And going through that program was the first time I learned about what it means to be satiated versus full, what it means to be able to push your plate away without shame, what it means to practice what's called like intuitive eating, what it means to listen to your body when it's actually hungry. And what I had been developing was like a restriction that's like, you don't need to eat right now. And you don't get to eat.
You don't get to eat
because you didn't do
right.
the things you're supposed to do to like earn food, like a battle or something. You know what I mean? But it was deep. But yeah.
I want to, we have some good comments. I want to say this, and then you also, I do think that we have to be very respectful of the lens. So like you're in never having had a weight issue until adult, you know, well, you don't even have a weight issue, but not putting on weight until later in life. And then my end, having a weight issue as a child and then navigating that, because, you know, for me, it was such a big part of my life, and it still really became such a big part of my life. And subconsciously, it when you have had a significant weight issue, significant where, you know, now health is at risk, the way you are navigating your lens there's so much distortion, and there's so much you're constantly thinking about it.
Okay.
Constantly thinking about it. It doesn't ever, every food, every beverage, every party, every gathering, if I eat this in front of them, will they think, okay, she sure is eating a lot? I mean, so there's a whole massive psychology. And so for me, to maintain the weight, I can easily put on weight. My body loves food and it will just, it accommodates. I look at a cookie and it's like 5 pounds,
Hello.
so it's,
Right.
it's just very, so
Yeah.
for me, managing my weight has always been this project.
Okay.
And it really wasn't until I really kind of started wigging out. Like it was 2017. I remember this. And because this is the other part. And this is being an artist, that Malik Yoba video,
right?
When you
being
know
on camera, performing in front of people, being looked at constantly. It's like it's different. If I mean, you know, no shame to an accountant, but you know, if you're an accountant and you're not necessarily in front of people all the time, versus in contrast to being someone who's in the public eye, so to speak, as a performer, as a creative, as an artist, people are constantly scrutinizing your appearance. Yeah.
You are constantly scrutinizing.
You are constantly scrutinizing. Yeah.
Even
yourself.
if you, I mean, I cannot tell you, I was just telling somebody, when you are doing a photo shoot or when you're doing a video shoot, there is so much going on that is focused literally on just how you look. Like literally, like
from head to toe,
from head,
your body,
from fingernails
size.
to eyelash, from every part of you. And when you get your pictures back, now it's time. Okay, what are we going to touch up? Well, this is a little this. Let's do this. How are we going to fix it? So this became, and I was just, you know, I'm an independent artist, so I'm not Hallie, I'm not Janet, you know, I'm not in that main stage. And that level of scrutiny that I felt, and nobody was saying it, but I knew that these images, that people see on social media even. And that's why I always try to tell people, I'm like, please understand, that is another Kenya. That is another Kenya. Because if I lived in that, I would be crazy. Like that to keep seriously.
Like it's for the best that I don't. Yeah.
And so in my normal Kenya life, which I'm in right now, like not being in my active artist life, and I look back at those videos and I still feel connected, but it's a little scared because right now I'm like, oh, good. I'm putting my glasses on. I can, you know, like, I don't care. You know, I mean, I still want to look beautiful and I still feel, you know, I've had to go through a lot of therapy and a lot to really understand, but I'm in a weird space right now because I realized that my artist self, though, was where I gave myself the permission, though, to feel really sexy in whatever.
In whatever,
And now I'm like, okay, whatever, but I don't know if I feel really sexy.
Right. I think that's where I'm living right now is, you know, last year towards the end of the year, I went to the doctor and got my, like Keola mentioned, your health is determined by your vitals. I went and had all this lab work done. I looked at all my numbers and I went to have another doctor look at the numbers and they said, oh, we might want to look at this particular number because this might be a little on the edge, and nothing that was a health scare or an alert or an alarm. But I remember going to the doctor and getting on the scale and seeing a certain number and looking at the nurse practitioner like, did you see that number? Because I didn't get any taller. So, and it was a moment where it was a number that I had never seen next to my name in all of my life. And I remember in that moment feeling like, I don't know who to be in this body. I don't know who to be. I don't know who this person is. I don't know how this person moves. I don't know how this person presents themselves. I don't know, where do they go? What kind of clothes do they wear? What kind of people do they spend time with? Because it felt so foreign, because I felt so dissociated from that body. And I mean, one of my good friends, Talisa, she's on here tonight. She really helped coach me through just getting myself new clothes, because something that I wasn't doing, I was refusing to buy clothes that fit this body because I was holding on to clothes.
Oh Lord, this is
for the appropriate size body. And they were sitting in my closet collecting all sorts of dust and cobwebs. But she was like, she introduced the CCC, which is, I want you to feel cute, comfortable, and confident in whatever body that you're in. And I literally virtually took her with me to the store. Like, okay, girl, I'm gonna try on these jeans. Okay, ooh, girl, it's a size this. I've never bought a size this before. I don't know if I should buy it. And she's like, girl, do you feel cute? Do you feel confident? Do you feel comfortable?
And this is huge. Thank you, Talisa, for saying. We got some really good comments in here. I hope you guys are kind of scrolling. But to that point, I'm right now in a season of throwing away shit. and buying clothes that make me feel cute, comfortable, and confident, and not waiting. And, one person I look at whenever when I start to feel like I'm just a little itchy, because I've worked really hard on this, is I will go to Jill Scott and I'm like, this girl, her stylist, they know, between her breast, whatever with her waist, with her face. I mean, I love how she is styled. I love how she's styled, because most things that I have seen her in are for her size, and she looks freaking amazing.
Fabulous. Yeah.
And in within her curves, within her layers, within all of it, and I don't know Jill, I don't know how she feels inside, but she definitely wears it with an ease. And I don't see her doing drastic things it's just,
alter her, modify her body. Yeah. And I like how you said the way she's styled, because that, like, to the point I was making earlier, that it seems in some cases that the bigger that a Black woman's body is, the more invisible she becomes. So when we see sometimes some people, when they see a Black woman who has a bigger body and she's styled to the nines, I often hear the good for her. That's good for her. Look at her. And it's like she's not allowed to be styled beautifully. Like, she's not allowed to have clothes that are made to accentuate her body, because she should wear a muumuu or a tent. Like, should she not show her curves? Should they be covered? Should they be concealed? And I think this idea of celebrating different body types and different body sizes, specifically within Black women, specifically within Black women's bodies, I think it's necessary for us to promote that. Because if we think that there's only one way to be beautiful, there's only one way that looks healthy. Like, I like what Keola said, that if your vitals are good and you're happy, be whatever size you want. And that's the approach that I've had to take is, are my numbers good? Am I about to die? Am I going to pass out? Or is my inflammation on 100? Is my glucose on really, really high? Whatever the number is that's above 5, whatever it ain't supposed to be. Because for me, it's about health. I want to be able to go for walks. I want to be able to get on some roller skates. I want to be able to go for a walk. I want to be able to get on an airplane comfortably. I want to be able to travel and move. And I don't ever want my size to impede that. And it hasn't been an issue so far. However, I know that I'm still working through this dysmorphic disconnection with this body.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, I'm a health coach, so I help people, process these things.
Yeah.
But, I'm a human being. And that's the big thing with the vitals, with what Keola is saying. My thing, your best weight is your healthiest and happiest weight. Like, when you feel, when you're lab work, when you are, either managing disease or free of that. And you are also happy or feel a sense of content and joy, and not stress to maintain, and not, frustration, or not paranoia, or, all of that. So if that means a little bit more weight on the scale, which whatever with the scale, but if that means I'm wearing a size a little bit bigger, but health wise, yes, my labs, I'm not suffering from, disease. I don't have an underlying quiet disease festering, because this is another thing that happens is, this is why the medical system, this becomes really complicated, because our medical system has a long way to go to better understand, to better understand Black women, and women, period, not women, even just Black women, but our bodies as women, what our bodies are doing in order to, your body is very smart, and your body doesn't ever want deprivation. It doesn't want to experience loss. It's not made to lose weight. That's not physiologically, it's made to go and move. This is why we can put on weight very easily, because the body knows I can just store it. I can put this away for later. I can put this away for later. Exactly. I can tuck it away. Or if I don't know how to process,
that you've been holding on to for a minute. You're like, exactly. Well, we got this.
Like, I don't even know what this is. Yeah. This is some substance. So I don't know really what to do with it. It's a toxin. Just put it away over here.
Right. So I wanted to address this comment. I see it that just came in. Thank you, lady. Thanks, ladies, for projecting your open-minded and truthful view. Our medical system was built from the abuse of Black women. Absolutely. I wanted to comment on that too. For when we think of bigger bodied Black women, and how we are treated, or how bigger bodied Black women are treated in the medical system, oftentimes if a bigger bodied Black woman goes into a medical practitioner's office, depending on who that practitioner is, and expresses any trouble sleeping, headache, maybe feeling depressed, maybe feeling super anxious, maybe feeling anything, the first thing they're going to say to them is, you probably should lose weight. You should probably lose weight. And it's like, well, why don't we start with running some labs? Let's look at my blood work. Let's do some x-rays. Maybe we need to do a body scan. Let's see what else is going on. But oftentimes,
let's ask, how the hell are you and what's
how
really
are
going
you?
on in your life?
That part. But let's immediately say, oh, you need to lose some weight, and that's going to solve all your troubles. And it's like, no. And it goes back into putting that bigger body Black woman into this invisibility box, where if she shows up even seeking medical support, would still potentially be dismissed based on the size of her body.
Well, one of the things I want people to, I teach at a health center, at a health university, so med students and so forth. And you must understand that medical education does not include weight management. It does not include nutrition. Physicians are not trained on how to manage, how to talk about it, I'm not saying that you don't have lectures or moments,
right?
But there is no full curriculum design that fully goes into the psychology of weight, that fully goes into culture and weight, that fully goes into foods and different cultures, and telling people stop eating white rice when you have cultures that this is a staple of their diet. I mean,
right.
We just really, it's so whitewashed. It's heavily, it is not good. Okay.
Right.
And so this is why I'm telling people, you must, even with taking labs, the medical system is looking for disease, but there's a lot. So this gap of labs, there's a lot that can happen in between, that you may not be at the diseased state yet.
Right.
But you could very well be having your systems are always kind of doing. And this is why, unfortunately, so many things get unnoticed or get whatever,
overlooked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people are coming in half dead before we kind of realize, oh, wait a minute. That's because that's what the system was really made for. So I really encourage women. We have to, as Black people, we cannot, we have to have a holistic way that we're looking at our health. We have to go to those practitioners who are asking us, not just like literally giving us an assessment of our mental health, because it's starting with your soul and your mental health. This is where it's all starting.
Right.
And, I want us, this is why I really hope our guests can come in our part 2, because the point you made about getting the clothes and getting confident, and just, that's where it starts. We have to accept where we are, wherever our body is, because what's happening is we keep trying to fit in. So Keila said doctors are great for surgery.
Doctors are great for surgery. Yeah, if you need surgery,
but that's how they're trained.
I mean,
my ex-husband was a surgeon. And so he didn't realize that a blueberry was good for you until 2 years ago. And I seriously, he said to me, I've been eating blueberries my whole life. And then the day he started, he's like, did you know that blueberries do? I'm like, are you really serious?
Like, are you really saying this?
Like, I was like,
yeah.
Anyway, but no shade on him. But anyway, because it's not part of their training. But start where you are. And I hope when we do part 2, I want us to talk about, because yes, we all want to get in that place where we can just accept this extra fold, except I'm still in my pelvic floor physical therapy, and over and over each week, she's like, let that tummy drop. Stop tightening that tummy.
Stop holding it in.
She said, who are you holding it in for? Who?
Right.
And I'm like, right.
You going to a kickboxing class? You trying to protect your core?
She's like, if you look a little pregnant in your home, for what? I'm like, right. But I'm so conditioned to go by the mirror like, oh, I look pregnant. Let me suck it in.
Right. And it's so bizarre, because I find myself, every day I typically take a shower. I take a shower every day, usually in the morning or the evening. But every day when I take a shower, there's a moment where, the shower's steaming and, things are, heating up or whatever. And I find myself kind of sitting there just looking at myself in the mirror. And what I'm working on is, using one of Keola's methods, which is just this mirror talk, like talking to myself in the mirror. And typically, if I talk to myself in the mirror, it's like, you're going to have a fantastic day. And I'm bigging myself up here. So what I've been working on, and I have not mastered it yet, what I've been working on is like looking at my physical body naked in the mirror and just looking at it with some level of appreciation. And it is a challenge for me because my first thoughts are so critical. And so something that I know that Karma does, in her workshops and her programs, she incorporates mirror work. And as a witness to some of her workshops and her classes, those are the moments where I see so much happening for these women. And I think it's because, well, it's a big part of it, but I know one part of it from just as a witness to it, it's because it's a safe space, like Keola mentioned in the comments, like feeling that you can live authentically, feeling safe, like Talisa mentioned, feeling comfortable, feeling confident, feeling cute in your body, and knowing that there isn't one way to be beautiful. So answering the question of thick, overweight, fat, what's okay for Black women, it's all okay for Black women. It's for me as a wellness advocate. My first priority for any client or any member of my community or even my friends is that you are well, that you're mentally well, that you're physically well, that you can look at yourself in the mirror naked and find something good, to see. That's what matters most to me.
Yes. Well, this exercise, thank you. And okay, so this exercise that you're doing of looking in the mirror. So of course, Kenya, she's dramatic. She can't just be in her house. She decides to do a nude photo shoot because she really wants.
That's so good.
So for my 50th birthday, no, I did not announce this on social media, but I'll announce it here now.
Okay.
For my 50th, for a year and a half or so, there's a photographer that I had been seeing on Instagram that does nude photography for Black women. And he and all their sizes, all their curves, from women who've had mastectomies, women who've had, the scarring and burns and just, postpartums and all the things, all the life. And he captures it in the most magical, beautiful, artistic way. And I was like, I want that. And I finally got the courage and a divine happening of timing. I was able to do this shoot. And here I was fully naked, having to, he was wonderful about it. And he constantly was just like, he's like, what I wish so badly Black women would see what I see. Like, this is so powerful what I see. He's like, look at this curve. Like, he's like, you had babies, you had babies and you still have this curve. And it was just like, I do, and so so doing that. So for me, that photo shoot wasn't so that, yes, I can go now. I ain't post. No,
he's not for like a centerfold.
He posted a couple on his page. And I was like, oh Lord, of course he got thousands of people that follow him. So I'm like, well,
it's out there now.
If you don't put the name, you don't put my name, but if because one of my friends, she sent me on Instagram. She's like, is this you? And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is.
It is. But it was such a good exercise because this is the thing. This is the thing. And I'm sure we're going to get into this when we do part 2.
Yeah.
Some of the most powerful part of who we are as women is our erotica and our sensuality. This is a big part of our power, a big part of our power. Not about sex, not about how many people we can get. It's not about any of that.
Right.
There is a divinity within our erotica and our sensuality that is so super powerful. And so if we do not appreciate our bodies as they are, we never tap into that power, the true power of who we are and the true power of what we came here for. And so I think, I have done your sister Karma's class. It was tremendous. And I saw how locked up, not just me, but my girlfriends, how locked up we were, how hard it was for us just to shed The
Mm-hmm.
energy, it was pure energy. You could see she was asking us just to lay on the ground and let our bodies
Mm-hmm.
move. And just that was like, how do I lay on the
How do I lay on the
ground?
ground? What do I
And
do?
and
Yeah.
everyone's watching me. How do I? And
Yeah.
it was like, but she's like, give your sisters energy. And it
Mm-hmm.
literally, it was the most powerful, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful. And I don't really have many words for it.
Yeah.
But those are the types of activities that, in addition to, buying the clothes and this, but to
Mm-hmm.
literally energetically get in soul spaces
Right.
where we hold our our us, all of us, and we step in our bodies
Right.
for who they are. And so I incorporate that, in my retreats, because it's so pivotal in opening us up to other parts of ourselves. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think when we think about combating the system, so to speak, that created some of these harmful stereotypes or these unattainable body images or body archetypes that we've tried to squeeze or form or shave or cut ourselves to be in,
mm,
I think a big part of combating that is creating those safe spaces, experiencing those opportunities like what you did in Karma's workshop, or what I experienced taking Talisa virtually shopping with me, or, just, using the skills that Keola's provided from, mirror work. It's like a combination of those things that I think it starts with us, of course, any kind of movement, any kind of revolution starts with just one person. And I think that going into it with the awareness that these images that have been projected or placed on us, whether it was family members asking about your weight or family members telling you that doesn't look good on you, or you should get smaller, or in some cases you should put on weight, or you're too skinny, or whatever it is. So the pendulum kind of swings both
it
ways.
swings. Yeah,
I think that the more we can do to amplify or to uplift or empower our voices through our bodies, I think is impactful, because sometimes there's women whose voices you will never hear because they're ashamed of showing their body or showing their faces.
absolutely,
They'll
absolutely,
they'll never put
absolutely,
themselves out there. They'll never, show up to
absolutely.
the event or get on camera or record the podcast or do the dance or write the book, because they're so ashamed of their bodies, because they don't
Right.
think that being thick or overweight or fat is okay. And I think
Absolutely.
that it's definitely okay. And I do think that it's important for people, for women, to feel that they at least have just one person that they can feel
Absolutely.
safe enough to reach out to and say, hey, you know what, sis, I got dusty clothes in my closet and I would love to go out, and I just need somebody to support me on this shopping spree or this shopping
Yes.
trip, or will you come
Yes.
with me to this dance class, or will you show up with me to this event,
Yes.
just to have that
Yes.
support and let that person be your mirror.
Yes.
Because I mean, you and I have had different experiences, but they're still so parallel, when you think about
Absolutely.
it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll just say this, during my last retreat that we did in Costa Rica, we spent a lot of time on this. And we also, my yoga instructor, who is actually my niece. And so she's an amazing yoga instructor, because she focuses on Black women. And her yoga is, I've never experienced yoga like that. And I'm not just saying this because she's my niece and I love her, but she literally, every woman, and we were concerned. We were like, well, we're doing it at 8 a.m. and it's, we're just going to be early, and are the ladies going to come to do the, and when they experienced her one yoga class, they never missed a class, because it was such, it was about the movement, but she incorporated within it, very similar to Karma, these
Mhm.
moments of whatever your body is allowing you to give you in whatever pose,
Mhm.
just let it go where it wants to go.
Yeah.
We are here for you. We
Yeah.
support you. If you need to just go into, child
Child's
pose and
pose.
just hold it, go
Mhm.
there. And her music was exquisite. And everybody left, sweaty but happy and connected. And
Yeah.
so I think this is, and hopefully maybe when we do our part 2, whatever we do, is to really talk more about how do we start forming these communities? How have we
Mhm.
maybe, and the guest, when we can get the guest on,
Mhm.
be able to kind of talk a little bit more about it, because
Yeah.
It's critical because it's not just about how cute we are. It is a little, but I'm telling you, it's tied so much into our spiritual and mental health.
Oh, for sure.
And we have a spiritual health, it's not just a spiritual thing, it's a spiritual health. And when your spiritual health is tapped into, there's just so much power. So I know for me at this point, I'm definitely the heaviest that I've, been by far. But I'm like, you are 50, girl. You had babies. You have gone through so much, divorce. You have gone through childhood stuff that was one day I'll talk about, but not yet. You have gone through.
One day, not today,
right. You have gone through and still, and yes,
and still here, and also still a contributing member of society, still creating, still impacting, still leading, still didn't disappear into a corner.
Didn't disappear,
just
because my thighs, but I still have love in my life.
Yeah, right.
I still have companionship, friendship in my life, and so yes, the scale definitely says bigger than what I've ever seen. Right. And I'm probably, in terms of my internal joy and spiritual health, at the highest that I've ever been. So if this is the body, there's things that I health-wise still want to really be cognizant of, because I am at an age where things are really shifting.
Of course. Yeah.
So I have to pay more attention to the health for real. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Keola made a good comment. She said, eventually we'll have to move away from referring to a body as fat or not fat and move towards leaner than average, and less lean than average. Because she mentioned earlier that larger size bodies are more average size bodies. Like I saw something the other day that said, Marilyn Monroe, one of the most, infamous women equated with, quote unquote, Hollywood beauty standards, she was a size 14. Yes. By today's standards, when I just ordered some jeans, 14 was the extra large. You know what I'm saying? And extra large doesn't necessarily sound like beauty when you're clothing and things like that. But at recognizing that language, I think we're starting to see shifting as well, so that it's, because even the terms like bigger body, it implies bigger than what? Bigger than normal, bigger than average, or smaller body, smaller than what? Smaller than normal, smaller than average. So I think the conversations like these are really necessary. And I do look forward to being able to come back and revisit it again with a guest, if she's available. And I do want to say, for those who, Talisa, thanks for tapping in. We are actually going to come back in 2 weeks. So we're entering into graduation season. So Kenya, as she mentioned, is she's a lot of things, y'all.
I'm an educator. I just say educator. That's an easier way.
She's an educator, and so one of the educational spaces that she's in is a college, and so they're going into graduation season next week, and so we're going to take next week off, and then we'll be back the following Thursday, which I believe is May the 4th.
Yes, May 4th.
Which is another auspicious day. It's like Star Wars Day. So that's fun. So we'll be back then. May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. Yes. Well, that's going to be that whole week is going to be kind of interesting, because the 5th is a full moon. And on the 7th, this would be my highlight. I am doing a special astrology self-care meetup, focused on your moon sign and its relationship to mother-daughter relationships, and how your moon sign tells, especially with your family, your moon sign tells a lot about the way you were mothered.
Okay.
It also tells a lot how you mother. Mm-hmm. So it's going to so this talk, by just knowing your moon sign and knowing its placement, you're actually really better able to understand what your mother was going through. Okay. In raising you. And also how you are impacting your child. So your child's moon sign tells what they're going through. Okay. So it's going to be a really fun. So we're celebrating Mother, the following weekend after that is Mother's Day. So just, if you are interested, again, that Kenya MJ music, if you go on Instagram, I have in my bio and the link, it has all the goods. So I'm excited about that. And also I'm really excited to talk about it, because it's absolutely fascinating when
I
you
can
realize
imagine.
that just on looking at your astrology, you can tell what your mother was going through. You can also tell what your mother was going through when she was pregnant with you.
When she was pregnant. Okay, I was going to ask about that. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's going to be on
That's
May
going
the
to be
7th?
May 7th.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
So
so the
people can
way
sign up through
you can
Instagram?
sign up. Yep. So
Mhm.
if you
Okay.
go to Instagram to the Kenya MJ Music and look in the bio, you're going to see a thing that says save the date.
Okay.
And you click on that, you fill out the form. And when the actual link goes where you can save your spot, you'll get notified. So we're just quietly, yeah. So because we can't have a whole bunch of people to that because I want to be able to get to each person, to let people be able to say what their moon sign is. So
yeah.
Anything that you want to highlight coming up that you want people
highlight coming up? Nothing off the top of my head. Just, my son's graduating from college in less than 2 weeks. So that's exciting.
awesome.
My whole family's going to New Orleans. So that'll be fun.
Yes. Awesome.
But yeah, I'm working on a lot of projects right now. Nothing that's ready to be announced just yet, but just continuing to support the movement of what you're working on and what I know lots of other people are working on too. So yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I got a lot coming up. I'm doing it in giblets. That's the first thing in May.
Yeah.
I'm also working on a mocktails and mantras, Mama Wusa. So where you guys can learn some recipes for some mocktails.
Mocktails and mantras. Keola is our resident mock tender.
She's a mock tender?
Girl, she was a whole, yes.
Why am I going to use your whole family? Like, why
I'm telling you, we're a one-stop shop. You don't have to go nowhere else. But yeah, Keola, connect with her on Instagram. Connect with her on Instagram. She's got a ton of mocktail recipes. She might even be available to come on and,
that's what I'm saying. I will. Yeah. Your mom said that's going to be interesting with 5 children. Let me say this to Mama Rain. It is because we raise each of our children differently, and it's within the moon signs that you really see how, in fact, you were raising each child differently. So you have to, Mama Rain, you got to know each of your kids' moon signs. So KEISEAN, your moon sign is
Sagittarius. I think we all know ours.
Okay, good.
All the 5 of us know ours. Yeah.
So yeah. So that Sagittarian
Me
energy.
and Keola are both Sagittarius moon.
So that means she raised you probably in a similar energetic way, which you have to look at the Sagittarian energy, which is positive, buoyant, can be a little impulsive. Yeah, so it's very, and actually Sagittarian moon is a more lighter moon. It's the Scorpio moon, Aquarius moon, and Capricorn moon that indicates there was probably more challenges. And my son has a Scorpio moon, gosh, Jesus. And then I have a Capricorn moon. So as I said, there are things that I haven't conveyed. And some of that is to protect. I think I'm still working through how to talk about some of my childhood stuff. Like I'm still working on that. You guys are very open, you and your family with your mom.
We've arrived there. It's a journey. It's still an ongoing journey too, because I think that, it didn't happen overnight. I can definitely say that we arrived there slowly. And then again, like you were saying earlier, when you have 7 people in one immediate family, there's going to be those who are, totally comfortable with, going into those conversations about things from the past, childhood, et cetera. And those who were like, well, let's just leave the past in the past. You know what I'm saying? Like that. So different levels of comfortability.
No, I'm open to talk about my son. I was actually having a conversation today with my Scorpio moon son because it was tough. He unfortunately experienced me during a really dark time of myself. You talk about postpartum. I had a lot of postpartum and I had a lot of darkness that I wasn't understanding about myself. It was very subconscious. And unfortunately, I see now how that got transposed onto him. And now, we've worked really hard. I've worked insanely hard on myself because I realized finally this wasn't about getting this kid any kind of way. This was about getting Kenya a certain kind of way so that this kid would have the freedom to be who he came here to be. And so we are in a season where he is, he's blooming in a very non-traditional way. And had I not done that work, we would really be in battle right now. But, my son he's going for the stars in a way that I'm like, Lord, Jesus. But he's, like, Mom, I'm the happiest I've been. I'm like,
That's
okay.
good. Yeah.
So yeah, all of that is in the chart. So it's fascinating.
So
and your
May
mom said,
7th, mark your calendar,
May 7th.
register through Instagram with Linktree, save the date.
Yep.
So it's the Sunday before Mother's Day.
It's
right?
the Sunday before.
Okay.
Yep. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Central. So that's 5
Central,
p.m.
so 5 p.m.
Pacific.
So yeah. Okay.
If you are a Patreon member, you have complete free access. If you are not, then join, because then it's just, you join for free for 30 days. Right. Then you can be for free. But if you're just like, I don't do any of that, I now no longer am doing entirely free events. I do holding things. So you pay a $10 holding fee. Your money will be refunded back to you upon you attending. If you can't come, you don't show up, then we can credit the $10 toward one of our next upcoming events. So that's how we're doing it now. Yeah. So all right. This was good.
Cool. Yeah. Good. Good conversation.
Thank you for leading the conversation, and we absolutely have to
being so vulnerable. This is good. Yeah. Thank you everybody for watching and sharing. And so we won't see you next Thursday, but we'll see you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you in 2 weeks, guys. All right, you guys take care of yourselves and love up on yourself. Love up on yourself. All right. Bye.